Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh is brought to you by
Mary Freebed, Collectible Insurance Services, Air Call Aesthetic and General Dentistry, Calder Financial, Grand Management Group, Right End Investments, Encore Business Group, Jim Hegland of JH Realty, Williams Chiropractic, and iCore.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh airs live Monday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern on Jethro.fm. Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh.
Stay informed and stay vigilant. Happy Peanut Brittle Day. I don't think that's what we're going to... Well, maybe we will celebrate it. That's the clapping of Big G behind the microphone. He's at the board. We got a lot of good energy here today because we got Big G on the board. We got Joey Williamson of Hollywood's World of Sports here, friend of the show, and all things social media for Patterson Ice Arena. But he's a big wrestling guy. He gives a lot of good wrestling takes, so we'll be talking some wrestling. His segment will be up at 8:15, but we got everybody here in studio. My mom's in studio too. She's got her Hoosier Red on for us going to the championship here last Monday. But okay, so Big G, I was going to give you an out. I was going to give you an option to celebrate the thing for tomorrow because it's 7 o'clock. I don't know if people are going to be able to run out and get peanut brittle here at this point, but you clapped. So you're ready to celebrate Peanut Brittle Day. Is this one of your favorite snacks?
It is my favorite
That's
snack.
the favorite one?
That is my favorite one.
Wow. Okay. What about you, Joey? Do you like peanut brittle?
I'm not a peanut guy.
I'm not big into peanut. I don't get peanut brittle. Can you?
You're both fired.
Okay, well, that didn't take long. I went the whole episode last time, I think, without getting fired. So I was due, I think, to get fired. Well, here's my question, Big G. Well, I have a couple for you.
I've got a question for Joey.
Go ahead.
Do you have peanut allergies?
No, I've just never liked anything like peanut-wise. I don't.
What the hell's wrong with you?
Well,
Everything.
I'm turning my question from you to Joey because I have a follow-up question on that. I don't like it. I don't like peanuts, say, or nuts in brownies. Like in desserts, I don't care for that. That's, I think, one of the reasons I don't like peanut brittle because it's like I'll have the cashew, the peanut, the almond, whatever, but I just want that separately. I don't want that mixing in with my dessert. It negatively affects my dessert. Is that it for you with the peanut?
I don't know. Like if there's peanut butter and like a chocolate ice cream or something like that, totally fine.
Okay,
totally fine. I'm just not a peanut guy.
Which is fair. Big G's offended, I think, and
I know he is.
And he's not far. I see he's got 2 energy drinks over here, and he is not far into the first one. So I'm a little bit worried about the middle of this show. And then the end is going to be the crash, I think. What do you think of that, Big G?
No, not at all.
No?
Not at all.
I'm getting ready for you to ramp up here. But that'll be during Joey's segment. So you'll be able you got to make sure you get peak energy at 8:15.
Oh yeah.
See, there we go.
Yeah.
But okay, so peanut brittle,
Yes.
Why do you like it? I'm not saying that in an insulting way, but like that's your favorite. That's like your favorite dessert, or is that more of a snack for you?
That is my favorite snack. My favorite dessert is something completely different for a different national, whatever Ryan can think of. Day.
If it's chocolate cake, that's tomorrow. That was going to be your out for peanut brittle. Chocolate cake day is tomorrow.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Well,
Nope.
I just thought we could celebrate both.
I love the flavor. I love the texture. I love the flavor. I love the flavor.
Why? 3 times I think we got the flavor there. Why do we only make it with peanuts? Why aren't there other kinds of the other kinds of brittle are not very prominent from what I've seen.
There is cashew brittle.
I haven't seen much of that.
Brittle.
I've seen almond brittle, but not much.
Oh yeah, there's cashew brittle. There's almond brittle. There's peanut brittle. There's walnut brittle. There's all sorts of brittle.
Okay, we got Big G, the Bubba Gump of brittle here.
There's brittle. There's peanut brittle, and there's cashew brittle, and there's almond brittle, and there's brittle, and that's all. And that's all I got to say about that.
So here's my question, because I try to get this into the show, as you know, as far as asking a question of the day. Do we ask people their favorite kind of brittle? That seems super specific, like because you're just picking a different nut, basically.
Yeah. Well, since peanut brittle is not everyone's cup of tea, and those people are all communists, I can tell you that as your executive producer for the day, I give you permission to ask what their favorite dessert is.
Okay, well, because I'm specifically looking at our 745 guest because it is highly acclaimed former coach of the Detroit Pistons. He's in his 80s now. He was actually the first African American coach to win Coach of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
Ray Scott,
yeah.
way back in the day with the Pistons. He's a very distinguished guest, especially for the likes of me and our show. So I don't know I don't know how he's going to feel about peanut brittle, but maybe he loves it, and we just don't know, and we're denying him that. We're denying him talking about peanut brittle with us at 7:45.
You can never deny peanut brittle.
I'm glad I picked that
Never.
because there's always a variety of days, and I never know what to pick. And I was like, I don't know what to do with peanut brittle, but who knew that was your favorite snack? I'm learning more about you every day.
That is my favorite snack, and oddly enough, Sam's Club sells the best.
Okay,
They do.
all right. We'll try to get the sponsorship here for us, Big G, and then you can eat peanut brittle on air from Sam's Club. And then it could be in is that ASMR where you have the sound? Is that what that is? He's just looking at me. This isn't good for ASMR, though. You're just looking at me. We need a sound, I think.
Well, since I'm not really familiar with what AMSR is, or
You know what I'm talking about, right, Joey? You're on
Yes,
social media
yes.
more than I am, for
I'm
sure.
on
But
social media too, but this is
it's like the sound of things. It's
Yeah.
like the sound into a microphone. So
like a
it's like
sound effect.
Oh.
yeah.
Okay,
It's like a sound
that's
effect.
fair.
Like we don't have a soundboard here, but we could have a soundboard with a sound. Scott and I were just talking about this actually. We could have a soundboard, one of the sounds being Big G eating peanut brittle. And then I hit that for 2 seconds, like after you talk.
I would do that for free. I would.
Well, or for a sponsorship with Sam's Club. Call Big G here at the studio.
Yeah, I'm sure the Walton family just jumping.
They really want to sponsor our show for sure. Well, we've got some good stuff coming up. We've got Joey's segment at 8:15. We've got the aforementioned Coach Scott's segment at 7:45, and then we've got Michael Whitaker coming on of Hockey News to talk some Red Wings and hockey with us here as they kind of head into the break for the Olympics here. But I want to get your guys' take since we try to fit in a little football here. I know Joey's not a Lions fan. I believe he's a Panthers fan mostly.
Correct. Yeah.
So and the playoff bound Panthers, the playoff they made the playoffs and the Lions didn't. But what do we think, Big G? Don't give them a look. Hey, they made it. They made it in. Yeah, okay, the NFC South isn't quite.
No, it's not.
Isn't quite. But they still won their division and they made it there. But I'm curious what you think of the new offensive coordinator here of the Lions. If you've been able to research that a little bit, Drew Petzing.
A lot of people lost their spit at that time. I was careful.
It's good.
Yeah, and but if you look at him, he coached with Ben Johnson. He was a groomsman at Ben Johnson's wedding. They run a lot of the same offense. He's familiar with the offense. He's smart. If you look at what he did with what Arizona doesn't or didn't have, what he did with that team was nothing short of phenomenal. So, good hire.
I agree with that. And we have a tendency to go a little bit counterculture on these shows, not necessarily just to go counterculture, but because the people that kind of aggregate things and aggregate takes, that's part of the reason I don't really listen to a lot of sports radio and things myself, because I want to formulate my own opinion based on talking to the experts. We have a different expert on the show every week that's now on the Shane Graham show for the football side of things, but we have a different person, whether it's from Pride of Detroit, Lions Wire, all of these different outfits.
Right.
But the Petzing hire to me is kind of at the same level. He is more accomplished than Ben Johnson was before Ben Johnson started.
Right.
Now, if you got a more experienced guy, like, say, Anthony Lynn, that did not go very well. The Morton thing, he was pretty experienced. So it's not always one for one. The people that wanted Mike McDaniel, I was not a big fan of that fit for the Lions. I'm not saying he's a bad offensive mind. I think he's a good offensive mind. I don't think he's a good fit with Dan Campbell, and I think he's gone in a year or two either way. I think either it doesn't work and they move on from him because of personality, or it works and he gets a head coaching job again. So either way, you're having to hire again. So that's why I didn't like that part of it. I also said this. I know you got something to say, Big G. I want to get one more thing in. I said this on the Shane Graham show last week. I was a big fan of hiring Mike Kafka for the same reason, basically the same reason set that you brought up for Drew Petzing. That's what I was going to say. So I think that is really where they're getting a win here, because I think he's good enough to be the offensive coordinator. I assume the early report from Justin Rogers from Detroit Football Network is that he's in a high-ranking position. Yeah. So I think that would mean maybe like an assistant head coach. I think they've kind of I don't know where Fraley's at with that. I think they technically had some sort of title like that on Hank Fraley, the offensive line coach. But moving something like that over, but getting two offensive minds like that, to your point, Big G, ran subpar offensive groups. I don't want to say offenses, but the talent level in that Cardinals team and that Giants team that we saw play the Lions this year. Remember that Giants game where they had that pass back to Jameis Winston, and they had a bunch of backups in there. Kafka was the one calling that game as the interim head coach, and I think Dan Campbell looked at him and said, hey, I can relate to having to be an interim head coach. And why do you think this is, Big G? We see this all the time. You have interim head coaches that you got guys that are good minds, they're good assistants, and they get promoted to be the interim head coach, but hardly any of them make it as the head coach for that team, but then they sometimes have to go to another team. Dan Campbell had to bounce around a couple times after being the interim head coach with Miami. And now Kafka, if I were the Giants, I would have been heavily interested in him. They know more about him, way more about him than I do, as far as his background and what he's got. But, I mean, Harbaugh is obviously a home run hire. That's, if you can get somebody like John Harbaugh, that's a good get. But it's just interesting to me that those guys basically often have to leave the team. It's like, okay, they were good at their job, good enough to get promoted, but it was a temporary promotion. So once somebody filled that role, now you're out instead of going back to your original role. I've just never really understood that. I don't know if it's like kind of a political thing. It's harder to go back, to your old role.
I don't know if it's so much a political thing, but NFL owners and general managers are, for the most part, are sold on head coaching experience. They're sold on the Harbaughs. They're sold on. Now, Chicago took a chance on Ben Johnson. Look what happened. But most of them, John Harbaugh is going to get hired. Mike McDaniel's going to get hired somewhere as a head coach. Not a lot of teams are willing to take a chance on the not so experienced head coach. Detroit was one of them. Look what they've done. Chicago, to their credit, and I hate Chicago with a passion. I hate Chicago. I hate Green Bay.
I'm glad Joey's not a Bears fan. He's a Panthers fan. Don't say anything derogatory about the Panthers while Joey's here. You did this while Elaine was here with the Bears, and then now she hasn't been back since.
Good. No, I like Elaine. If you're listening, Elaine, I'm kidding. She's still my friend on Facebook. She won't be after tonight.
I mean, it's on Facebook. I don't know how official that is, but go ahead.
But,
we're okay. We're okay. Go ahead and finish what you were saying.
But yeah, it's just a case of a lot of NFL teams are looking for the proven head coach, even if the proven head coach doesn't have a great track record. Pete Carroll, decent track record, won a Super Bowl, lost a Super Bowl because he couldn't hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch. Dummy. And
now we're having a rematch of that game here, that matchup.
Yes, we
are.
Seahawks,
Patriots.
Yep.
Seahawks.
You want the Seahawks in that one, Joe?
That's what I picked. So I filled out a ESPN playoff bracket, and I predicted the Patriots and the Seahawks in the Super Bowl.
Nice. That's good. That's a good prediction.
I had the Seahawks winning the whole thing.
that AFC championship game was a total mess. That with that weather, I want to talk to Shane about this on Thursday. I'll be back in studio, but I felt so bad for those kickers, and he'll be able to describe what it's like. But I mean, you saw the weather at the beginning of the game versus the end. It was two totally different climates. Basically, it was like they moved. It was wild, but that good prediction on that. Well, we're going to get Joey and Big G in more in the show later on, but they'll also be free to jump into the interviews here if they want to. We're going to be talking. I think Joey's a Mighty Ducks fan, so we're going to be talking
And
Red Wings. I
love the Red Wings.
Not Mighty Ducks, although I do like some Gordon Bombay. But we're going to get some Red Wings talk in with Michael Whitaker after the break of the Hockey News. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Happy to bring on this next guest here. We've got Joey and Big G in studio. They'll probably be jumping in. Joey has some questions for Michael already, but we wanted to get Michael Whitaker of the Hockey News back on. We had a good talk with him, but it got cut short by connection issues. So we're hoping the connection's better this time here, Michael. And we're also wondering today, we're celebrating the thing of the day in honor of Big G. Do you like peanut brittle?
Honestly, I cannot even remember the last time I even had peanut brittle. So, you know what? I'll just go ahead and give the politically correct answer and say, yeah, sure.
That's the answer I'm expecting from this question. I don't know how many peanut... I brought this up because we try to celebrate the thing of the day. There weren't a lot of good options today. And so I settled on peanut brittle, and unbeknownst to me, my producer, Big G, that's basically his favorite snack. So then we spent about 7 minutes of it in the open on peanut brittle here, but I'm wondering if we're going to get that response from everybody. But that's a good first response. We want to get your hockey takes above all. You sound great, so I think we're in good shape there. But I know Joey's got some questions for you. We'll leave those kind of towards the end as far as we want to talk some Olympics since we're heading into the break. But just wanted to get your takes. We didn't get this part of the segment when you were on the first time, and ever since really you've been on the show, they've been surging. Now we've got Gibson with 2 8-game win streaks and net. This team, it's kind of like the Pistons to a degree. We cover the Pistons every week too, and they keep talking about, well, who are they going to trade for? How are they going to get better? And the Pistons are the number 1 team in the East. The Red Wings are in a little bit more packed league, and they kind of vacillate back and forth depending on the nightly result, but they're towards the top of the division and the conference. And I'm just curious what you've seen here, because we're talking about trying to acquire stars. I talked with former Minnesota Wild player Eric Westrom, and he was very happy about the Hughes trade. A lot of Red Wings fans were unhappy about not getting Hughes, but they're also developing some stars in-house too. So with this young core and the way they're playing, it's not it's not too bad here in Detroit, and it's looking like hopefully they can trend to their first playoff appearance in a while here.
Well, kind of like you said, it's really started with the absolutely elite play of John Gibson. I mean, this is the best hockey he's played in his entire career. I know that his first several starts were not what he or the team really wanted them to be. His numbers weren't all that much to look at, unfortunately. But obviously, came from a completely different team, different part of the country, really. And maybe it takes a while to kind of adjust to your new surroundings. But since the calendar flipped to December, he has been absolute shoe-in Vezina trophy worthy of play. Basically, his confidence is sky high. He looks every bit as the kind of starting goaltender that the Red Wings were hoping that he would be when they acquired him. And I mean, right now his most recent win was another 8th in a row, which makes him the first Red Wings goalie since Chris Osgood to have multiple 8-game winning streaks in a single season. And then also, speaking of streaks, you have Lucas Raymond has already reached 40 assists. That actually makes him the first Red Wings player since Henrik Zetterberg to have at least 3 straight years of 40 assists. And everything just seems to be clicking right now. The line combination of Andrew Kopp with Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat has worked wonders for this team. And I really don't think it's too much of a coincidence that last season, right around the start of March, when Andrew Kopp went down, that's when a lot of their problems really started, kind of unfortunately, with their downturn in the month of March like they've experienced the last couple of years. Obviously, the year before that, it was Dylan Larkin was hurt for several games, and then last season they lost Andrew Kopp. And I know that even though Kopp's offensive stats maybe aren't exactly what a lot of fans would like them to be, he's carved out such an important role, especially on the penalty kill, and he kind of looks almost reborn playing with DeBrincat and Kane, and so it's great to see that line chugging along. And then you have Marco Kasper kind of really getting the giant monkey off his back. I know that he really wasn't even going through a sophomore slump. It was just something almost otherworldly going on with him. Obviously, I really don't think there were too many problems with his confidence, that it just wasn't working for him. But in the last couple of games, he's got a couple of goals now, a couple of assists, and the game in which he scored his first goal earlier this month, even though it was an empty net goal, he was all over the ice, and he looked exactly like the kind of player that he was in the second half of last season, where he would have been a Rookie of the Year candidate over a full 82-game schedule. And so obviously tremendous to see Kasper's confidence rise. And then you kind of mentioned the younger players that this team is, along with Kasper, but names like Sandine Pellikka and Emmett Finney. Finney recently broke a lengthy point streak, or a pointless streak, has a couple assists now in his last few games. And one guy who is not by any means a rookie, but was quite a long time ago, is James Van Riemsdyk. Obviously, this has been easily one of the most underrated signings, I think, by Steve Yzerman or any NHL GM during the most recent offseason. I know he also kind of got off like Gibson to a slower start. Obviously, he missed all of training camp and the preseason to be with his family after one of his newborn children required some extra care. But he has absolutely more than made up for lost time with that. He is quickly turning into one of the most important veteran leaders on this team, and he's chipping in with timely offense and looking like he did almost 10 years ago. And so obviously he scored another goal the other night in the overtime setback against the Wild, but he looks every bit as good as a player as he's ever been. And so thankfully things right now really seem to be clicking with this team. Obviously they picked up 5 of a possible 6 points on their recent 3-game road trip against good teams too. And obviously right now they're in a very good position of first overall in the Atlantic Division. I know it's kind of changing every once in a while, like kind of back and forth with the Lightning. The Lightning won, they went back into first place, and then Detroit took it back. And so it's very, very tightly packed in the East, especially in the Atlantic. But right now the Red Wings have put themselves in about as advantageous a position as they've been in well over a decade now. And so obviously it's great to see, and let's hope that they can keep it going and eventually host Stanley Cup playoff hockey at Little Caesars Arena for the first time.
I agree, and I feel like there's a lot of indicators, positive indicators, that that's going to happen. You listed a lot of them, but there was a lot of reason to be hopeful even in the beginning of the season when Gibson wasn't doing so well. I was saying multiple times on the show, hey, it's early. He's got to get used to how the defense is going to line in front of him, new team, new environment, new city. I don't think people talk enough about actually going to a new city and a new market and then having to just adjust to everyday life. It's like if you move with your job, you're going to have to adjust to that, and that's going to affect your day-to-day performance. And when it's that split second, especially with a goalie, that's going to affect his performance. And he's now he's gone to basically being at peak form, and like you said, really surging to being one of the top goalies of the league now, where it was at first it was okay, who is 1A and 1B between him and Talbot? Now it's like, wait, where is Talbot? We haven't really needed him much, which is nice. He'll be rested when he has to be forced into action. You got other goalies in the system playing super well, in Kosa and Augustine. All the reports that we're hearing about these goalies are good at the minor league level if they have to pull somebody up. But that we have a tendency, even on the show, where we have a variety of voices, we have different people, the names get aggregated some because they want to talk about the same guys. Finney has been a huge talking point. I think this is the first time that anybody has mentioned Kopp on the show, and I'm glad you did, because he is a major glue guy on that line, as you mentioned. And hockey's not all about, yeah, sure, it's nice to get the assists, it's nice to get the goals, but there's a lot of stuff that happens blue line to blue line, in the corners, in the boards there, in the penalty kill, that doesn't necessarily show up in the stat sheet. And correlating his injury history with the wins and losses of the team, I don't think is unfair. Sure, they're going to lose more if they don't have a Larkin on the ice, but not having somebody like Kopp, even though he's not necessarily everybody's favorite player, I do think he's been one of the more important Red Wings, along with some of the other guys you named, over the course of the year this year.
Yeah, he certainly has been, and it's good to see him sticking with it this season and staying healthy. Let's obviously keep our fingers crossed that he's able to stay healthy. Unfortunately, obviously, that's not the case with, got the news this morning, Simon Edvinsson is not going to be available until late February, which in a normal season that would be obviously very awful news, but I guess the only silver lining is that there's only 5 games between now and then, because obviously you have the Olympic break, and right now it's looking like they're going to be sticking with Travis Hamonic on the blue line for Detroit. Obviously you still have Eric Gustafson. He's available in Grand Rapids if need be. We'll have to see whether or not Gustafson is called up or not. But I guess, like I said, the only silver lining about that is that between now and the end of February, there's only 5 games because of the Olympic break.
It is good timing with that break. That's actually a good lead-in, because Joey was talking about this before the segment. He was talking about the other 2 guys on that line with Kopp, and so I think he has a question for you. We're going to have some Olympic coverage here while they're out there for the certain Red Wings. But I think he wanted to ask you about a couple of Red Wings that won't be there for the Olympics.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on DeBrincat and Kane not being selected to the U.S. team. I just What are your thoughts on that? Because I've had a lot of debate with a lot of hockey guys about Kane not being on. I personally feel he should be, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I was a little surprised that he wasn't selected. I think part of the reason why is that he hasn't been fully available this season because he's missed multiple games. But if anything, I mean, he doesn't need to be a major minutes guy. He can obviously still function very well on the power play. And obviously he's not only a 3-time Stanley Cup winner, but he's played on Olympic teams before and would certainly be one of the veteran leaders on that team had he been selected. And so I did speak with him in the dressing room not long after the final roster was announced, and he did admit it was a little bit disappointing, and the same thing with DeBrincat too. Obviously he's up to 27 goals, I believe it is, so far on the season. Certainly kind of an interesting choice that he wasn't included in, but I think there's a couple of interesting decisions by Bill Guerin, the GM of the Team USA, over some players within the Red Wings' own division. You have Montreal Canadiens forward Cole Caulfield, who's got, I think, 8 goals in his last 5 games, almost kind of sticking it to them of saying, hey, this is what I can do. Why didn't you pick me? A lot of people are kind of confused as to why Caulfield wasn't selected. Obviously, you have Jason Robertson with the Stars, who has several Michigan connections. He's having a fantastic season for Dallas. He wasn't selected either. Kind of an interesting thought process by Guerin, but obviously he's the one making the decisions there. If anything, I would guess that the main reason why DeBrincat wasn't selected is, I think the only hang-up on him is that he's not the biggest guy on the ice, which, I mean, I don't think that counts for much in the long run, because we've seen players of all statures basically have success. And so obviously it's not, the fact that DeBrincat's not the tallest guy, it's not stopping him from, scoring at a 40-goal pace again this season. And so he kind of admitted that there was a little bit of disappointment on his end over not being selected, but that's, Kane and DeBrincat certainly are not the only players who were kind of left wondering, some of the logic behind the decisions by Guerin, especially considering some of the other players that weren't selected either. So I thought that Kane would most likely make it mostly for his leadership abilities and the ability to play on the power play. But that decision was made by Guerin to just go in another direction there.
I'm with you guys. I was a little bit surprised too. I have to admit though that as somebody that covers the Red Wings and a growing up a Red Wings fan, I wasn't that disappointed from the standpoint of the Red Wings, because I do think that this is something that gets a little bit underrated with these guys that do go play in the Olympics, whether obviously in a winter sport, it's during the season like this. You can see it, I think, more so in basketball, where these guys play a full season, then they go off to whatever country it's in. They end up playing basically all summer. They might be a playoff team, so then they play through the playoffs, then they play in the summer, and then they basically have a very short break, and they come back for training camp. The numbers on that when they come back, even if they're a younger guy, you get a little burned out doing that. It's hard not to. They're not going to say it. They're not going to use that as an excuse. They're going to want to play for their country. I get all of that, and they deserve the right to if they're selected and all of those kinds of things. But especially with DeBrincat and especially Kane being on the older side, I'm not mad at their legs being a little fresher here, Joe.
Well, my other team, the Ducks, I was also kind of surprised that Kreider wasn't put on Team USA. Kind of for the same reasons as, leadership and veteran status, and he's still scoring goals at a good pace too. So the guys on the Red Wings and Kreider on the Ducks were kind of the ones I was disappointed that didn't make it.
And it is a good sign, Michael, that there are guys like that being left off, hopefully, for the chances of a U.S. team, because that must mean, hopefully, that these guys that they've decided to put on the roster can make a good run there. Because, if you're leaving that off the table here, then hopefully that means that they can make a run.
It really, I guess that's why they say they play the games on the ice instead of on paper. And so I think that, if the Four Nations face-off last year was any indication, I think fans are certainly going to be wanting to tune into these games. Let's certainly hope that the folks taking care of the arena over in Milan have everything ready to go by the time that the Olympics are ready to start. I know that there was several delays with either the outright construction of the venue or even the ice quality, and so let's certainly hope that that's all taken care of, because fans are certainly deserving to watch what should be a great tournament of the best talent in the world. And to be honest, I really wouldn't be surprised if kind of once again, obviously there's going to be more countries involved than the Four Nations last year, but it really wouldn't be a surprise to once again see the U.S. and Canada battle it out for top billing there.
That was a great matchup. That's been a great matchup here in recent memory. So that wouldn't be bad. But I do like that this break seems to be well timed. There are some Red Wings in the tournament as a whole, obviously, but between Edvinsson being able to heal up, like you said, and not miss a lot of games, not having Kane and DeBrincat, some of their older guys in there, I'm not too mad about that. But you made some good observations in that first point, talking about Kopp, talking about a lot of the young guys. They have a good mix of young and old here on this team, because you've got the young guys that have given a lot of good juice, but like you said, I don't think anybody saw JVR being this good as kind of a resurgent older player reuniting with one of his classmates in Patrick Kane.
It does kind of come full circle, because obviously Kane was taken first overall in 2007 by Chicago, and then Van Riemsdyk second overall by Philadelphia, and then just a couple of years later they meet each other in the Stanley Cup final with Chicago and Philly, and obviously that's the final where Kane scores the Stanley Cup winning goal on his now not his coach, but goaltender Michael Layton, who's actually the Red Wings goaltending coach now. And so kind of a lot of ways it's come full circle. But it's great to see. Van Riemsdyk just seems to have a genuine love for the game, and the way that he conducts himself and speaks after games and practices, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go into coaching eventually one day. He's very, very articulate with not only his own reviews of his own performance, but obviously the rest of the team, and it's paying off in ways that I think that even like the more optimistic Red Wings fans had when he signed him, like those expectations are being completely blown out of the water with what he's been able to bring to this team, and he's really brought an element of a key presence in front of the net, which the Red Wings really haven't had since the days of guys like Thomas Holmstrom, who would literally make their living right in front of the net. That's where Van Riemsdyk really thrives. That's where he spends most of his time on the ice, is at the periphery of the crease there, taking away the goaltender's view, and not so much in the same style of Holmstrom, because he was very, very unique in that aspect. But we've seen so many times this year, so many great assists at or even below the goal line, right next to the net. And obviously he's, when his goal against the Wild the other night was off a pass from Emmett Finney, right in front of the goal mouth there. And he's just been almost a revelation for the Red Wings, and he's kind of turning back the clock to points earlier in his career when he was considered one of the better forwards in the league. And now obviously the Red Wings aren't going to depend on him like he's 25 years old again, but it's great to see that he still has several of those elements that made him worthy of being taken second overall. And obviously the Red Wings are reaping the benefits from it.
He's been one of the more important parts of the team, and like you said, they don't have to depend on him in the same way that they used to. I want to talk about one more name from that grouping of names that you talked about, because with Edvinsson being out, and thankfully it's not going to be too many games, but it's also kind of a weird bit of timing with the trade deadline, because even though it's more than a month, it's like a month and a half away, there's not that many games between now and the trade deadline because of the position of the Olympics. And I'm curious if seeing guys like Hamonic in there more is going to encourage them to make a trade based on, let's get a little bit more depth in here if we can while we get Edvinsson back and some of the other reinforcements back. Do you see anything happening here in between now and March 6th?
I think that obviously the Red Wings could always stand for additional help on the blue line. I'm not sure if this injury to Edvinsson is going to force their hand, so to speak. Obviously, we know that Steve Yzerman likes to keep everything very, very close to the vest. And so right now there haven't been too many indications other than from, pretty well-connected NHL insiders like, Elliot Friedman and Pierre LeBrun have been speculating about potential additions by the Red Wings. But obviously that is all going to rest on what Steve Yzerman decides is best for the team. It really wouldn't surprise me if the Red Wings were to go out and acquire defensive help. I know that obviously Rasmus Andersson was a name that had been kind of floated out there, and obviously now he's with Vegas. And so, but there are other names that have been floated out there by various other insiders. And so it would really probably come down to what not only the cost of what it would be, but what that player's current contract looks like, because so far in his tenure with Detroit, at least not yet, Yzerman hasn't really shown a willingness to take on rentals. Maybe with Detroit's advantageous position in the standings right now, that could potentially change. But like I said, it's ultimately going to come down to what he decides is best for the team right now. And I think that given where they are in the standings, it would not be surprising to see them for the first time in a long time be buyers at the deadline rather than what we've traditionally seen the last several seasons as selling off pieces.
Especially with the way the deadline went last year, and then they didn't really do anything, and Larkin and some others spoke out. I wouldn't be surprised, but they're surging without that, which is nice. So like you said, they're in an advantageous position. But we appreciate you joining the show. You sounded great. So whatever was going on last time, it was not happening this time. So we'll definitely have you back on the show, but make sure to tell people where they can follow your work here.
Absolutely. Well, for those who are just simply need to point of reference, you would just simply go to the Hockey News and click down on the link on the top left of the page, cover the Red Wings. You can certainly follow my work there. You can always register for a free account at the Hockey News and hit the yellow follow button on my account. It's 100% free, and that way you can kind of easily stay connected with all that. And then Twitter handle is at MWHITAKER_89. Been really starting to get very active on Twitter after a long time of not being active on it, but usually tweet out game updates and even game goals, highlights, and all that kind of stuff. And so usually the best way to keep in touch with everything that I'm doing is either on Twitter or on the Hockey News website. So
be sure to give him a follow. Great stuff. Appreciate you joining the show, and we'll look forward to talking to you again here likely after the trade deadline.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Appreciate the talk, and talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Michael. Take care.
Yep, you too.
All right, thanks to Michael Whitaker. Good stuff there on the hockey world. We're going to take a quick break, and then I got to check in. We're going to get Ray Scott on in two segments here, but I'm looking at Big G's area over here. I think he's already had one of the energy drinks. Joey, I'm a little worried about this, so we're going to check on Big G after the break. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Coming back here in studio, I want to check in here with Joey and Big G. Joey had a good question on the Olympics, because I think that's been on people's minds, but I know I've been kind of that mindset, Joey, that I know, I mean, nothing against these guys, because it's very important to represent your country. We had Eric Westrom on, who had one of the bigger goals in world championship history. He was in the bronze game there, and he had the game-winning goal, and I know that's one of his all-time memories, being a professional hockey player. But from the Red Wings perspective, I think it's good to keep the legs young, but it would have been nice to see them in the tournament at the same time, because I do think they were deserving of it. Big G, what's going on with you over here? I see, are you done with one of the energy drinks? Are you getting ready to do energy drink number 2? We're not even in hour number 2. Are we done with the first one?
Mind your business.
I mean, I just have such a good view of what you have going on over here, so I can see this is what I'm looking at. I've been monitoring your energy drink count, and you've got some Ike and Ikes. That's a good. Where's your peanut brittle? You need to celebrate Peanut Brittle Day.
Who says I didn't?
Oh, you had some already.
Yes, I did.
You had some at home. I like it. Well, I'm just, we've got an interview coming up with Ray Scott. This will be a good interview. He's been connected. He's got a new book coming out, which will be about boxing. He had a very good book about basketball and his experience in the old days. And one of the things that I find interesting about the kind of the celebrity world during the old days there is he was able to connect with, it's like a who's who. It was like he was listing everybody that was a celebrity back then. So that will be a more kind of like serious interview. So I wanted to check in with you before that, because I don't know what your sugar content and energy experience is going to be when we get into Joey's segment here. So how are you going to be around 8:15? How are we trending with the energy level?
You'll find out.
Okay, I'm not sure. What do you think, Joey? I'm a little worried about this.
Bring the energy. Because I'm going to have plenty of it come 8:15.
Yeah, Joey's going to be pumped here to talk about some.
My favorite event of the year.
He literally has, folks, a Royal Rumble shirt on. He just told me it's got every logo that the Royal Rumble has had over there. It's a cool shirt. I've never seen this shirt before, but it's a cool shirt. So he's ready. I like the Royal Rumble as well. I like the randomness of the experience of the Royal Rumble, that you don't know who's going to come next, and the random entrance. So we'll be talking.
It's hard to mess up a Royal Rumble.
It is. It's fun, no matter how you cut it. The ending's important, but the journey is also a lot of fun. So we'll be talking about that. But we're going to talk with Coach Scott first here. Interesting conversation pending with him about his new book. He's got a new book, like I said, coming out, Boxing in Black and White, and then he also had a similarly themed book on basketball. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Coming back here in studio, we're having trouble getting a hold of the coach. He's a busy busy man. I was honored to talk to him one time here about his book, but I know he's got a lot going on, and he's got a real good history here in the Detroit sports market. So hopefully we can get him on. But the good news is that we have Joey in studio. We have Big G in studio. He's trying him one more time, but we'll get him on later in the show. But we can go into our wrestling here. We had a little bit of a preview talking about Joey's shirt, and I say we talk some wrestling. What about while Big G's not lit up? He's still trying to get him here. But Joey, so the Royal Rumble, I'm with you. This is my favorite one. I know WrestleMania is the spectacle. I know that's the big event. I know that's where they bring in all the stars and have the big matches. I don't think you can beat a Royal Rumble for me because I'm a wrestling fan. Yep. I do like a lot of wrestling, but I think I'm more on the comedic spectrum of wrestling. Like some of my favorite wrestlers, like I love R-Truth. Yeah. I think he's a great worker too, and he's got a good history. Yeah. But his comedic timing and what he's done in the Rumbles to me is very entertaining. He entered, I think one year he entered the Women's Royal Rumble on accident. Then he got knocked out of the Men's Royal Rumble. Did he get knocked out by Nia Jax one year before he even was able to get in the ring? Yep. So they kind of did a twist on that. Yeah, he brought a ladder and he did a tag. Was it in a Royal Rumble where he turned it into a tag match? Yeah, he did. This stuff is brilliant to me, and so I like the randomness that happens. Of course, it's not random. They determine who's going to be in there, but random to us. We don't know what the order is going to be. So I'm excited to talk about that part. Big G, what are you most excited about in the Royal Rumble? Joey and I are excited. What's your favorite part of the Royal Rumble here?
Well, and I agree. The Rumble is either my first or second, either ahead of or behind WrestleMania. I like all the surprise throwback entrants that come in over time. You know, I like the when they break the fourth wall and have an entrant from maybe like Ring of Honor or TNA or something like that. Yeah, I like that too.
I was going to ask Joey about that, so that's a good lead in here because they not only have now they have the association with TNA with Impact, so I'm sure we will see some people from there. That won't be a big surprise. Yeah. Some of them, I don't think, like some of them are probably expected. Like I don't know who on the men's side, but maybe like a Jordan Grace on the women's side.
Already on WWE.
Yeah, so people that have transitioned.
I think if anybody from the TNA side were to come this year from men's, it would probably be Mike Santana.
I was going to ask you about that name. I know he's done well. I'm familiar with his work from AEW and his tag team work with him and Ortiz, but I know he's been pretty prominent. I haven't watched a lot of TNA, but I know he's been pretty prominent. Is he the champion right now?
He is.
Okay,
got the belt back.
So that would probably be a good one. What about the older? What about the legendary competitors? Do we have any expectation of some of the? Because I like it when we get somebody from the old days.
I'll give you one phrase: break the walls down.
That would be good. That would be good. Yeah, Big G's not in his head. You like the throwback guys, Big G. You like the legends. So that now he's been rumored to. We're of course referring to Chris Jericho, the legendary wrestler that's kind of everywhere. He's a rock singer now in the band. I got to get the band. Fozzy. I'm used to listening to the song Judas. I want to call him Judas. It's not song. Judas. That's Judas Priest from the old days. But so he's been rumored. Why have there been so many rumors? Is his contract up at AEW? Yes. Okay.
It expired at the end of December.
Okay.
And to me, it's like the worst kept secret in wrestling right now. Like, honestly, I'd be more shocked if he's not there on Saturday.
Because I feel like there was an event. I don't know if it was you, because I follow you in your wrestling reporting. I don't know if it was you or if I saw this somewhere else, but I think there was an expectation that he would maybe even be there before this, right? Was there another event that people were maybe expecting him at?
There was talks that he might show up on the anniversary of Netflix.
Okay.
The 1 year anniversary show.
Okay.
But Royal Rumble's perfect for him to come back.
You have so much room. I think that's one of the underrated things about the Royal Rumble as a whole is, yes, the main storyline is, hey, who wins, who gets to challenge somebody at WrestleMania. Yep. But I think the good Royal Rumbles are the ones that enable you to build feuds through the rest. Who eliminated who had a disagreement in the Royal Rumble. Maybe it's a team, and then you tease some dissension. Do you have any predictions on kind of feuds that we could see outside of the main event?
I think Jacob Patu and Cody Rhodes are going to continue what they started on Saturday's night's main event. Imagine it even happened. They brawled all over the arena, and I know both of them are in the Royal Rumble, and I see one or the other eliminating each other.
One of the, I know this is on the card otherwise, but one of the feuds that I saw kind of teased that they think it could continue beyond this, and I don't know, it's always interesting to me when they have a match on the card and then those participants are also in the Royal Rumble, or one of them, and then they kind of have, maybe they lose and then they have a bit of a redemption story. But I know the Zayn McIntyre match has been kind of built up because the storyline has been that Zayn has lost, I don't know, 11 times or something, 13 times, something like that, to McIntyre in a row. Do you think they're building to something beyond this, or do you think this is the end of this particular feud? I haven't followed it. I know those wrestlers, but I didn't realize he'd lost that many times.
It's hard for me to fathom that Drew would lose the title this quick after winning it, but at the same time they keep putting emphasis on the fact that Sammy's never beat him and that Sammy's never won the big one. And then you also got to factor it's in Saudi where Sammy is beloved.
That's a good point.
I mean, the roof, I don't think there's a roof, but the pretend roof is probably going to blow off the building.
Well, I think that's one of the things I read. They were talking about how, okay, maybe there's a loss there, but then Sammy then gets into the Royal Rumble and then wins, building up a WrestleMania feud. I don't know if they would use it on that. It seems almost like a waste of the Royal Rumble match.
So the thing of it is, there are so many guys right now in the Rumble. Like, you could make a viable case for 5 or 6 of them. Like, I really... I'm having a hard time nailing down who's going to win the Men's Royal Rumble. I know who I want to win.
I think I know who you want to win.
You know
I follow you enough where I know who you
win.
But I'm looking at the odds right now. These are via betonline.com, but they do put out odds for the people that are kind of laughing at that. They do have odds on this stuff, especially the Royal Rumble. And so Reigns is number 1, Gunther's number 2. Just as far as these rankings go, but they're close to your point, Joey. Yeah. And then Sami Zayn is number 3, and your guy that you want is number 4.
Yes,
and he's just behind him. Zayn is plus 400, and Braun Breaker is plus 500. So that's very close.
Yes,
and they're doing this based on kind of the predictive behavior of booking and wrestling and WWE as a whole. So that's not, I mean, that is something to go off of. I think people would say, well, what do you care about these? Well, it's the same thing as watching it for a basketball game. They know this is more about human behavior because you can know how something is booked and then be a little bit more predictive about it rather than the uncertainty of a basketball game, a football game, how that's gonna bounce because somebody's booking these guys to win.
So tonight on Raw, Adam Pearce is supposed to meet with Braun Breaker to get Braun Breaker's suspension lifted. I keep telling myself in the back of my head that for some reason I think Pearce is like, okay, you can be reinstated and be in the Rumble, but if you're in the Rumble, you're going number 1. Like, that's, for some reason, that's just in the back of my mind, and I can't shake that feeling. Or Heyman's going to use his influence and somehow get Breaker at number 30.
That seems more likely to me because I'm just looking at the work rate of a guy like that because he's so intense. He's obviously in great shape. I'm not criticizing his ability to go, but this is a long match, and they do have times where they're knocked out and they lay on the side or what have you. But to be in that whole match, that's a huge ask of a guy that probably he hasn't done correct me if I'm wrong. You're a big fan of his, Joey. I don't think he's done a lot of long matches in WWE. He doesn't doesn't really do.
He's done a couple 25, 30 minutes.
Has he done
with
some long
Sammy.
matches? Okay.
Yep.
Who's a great worker, used to that kind of work rate,
Yep.
and probably was able to kind of carry him along on that. Makes sense that was a good match.
He had some long matches in NXT too as champion.
And I'm not he seems, I mean, he's a former football player. He's got a lot of conditioning. I'm not questioning his conditioning, but with a guy with that much explosiveness, it's like the same thing as Goldberg back in the day. You didn't really expect him to wrestle a long match. There was a reason that he'd do a spear, a jackhammer, and kind of finish it off because he was tired and sweaty by the time he got out of the tunnel with his intro.
But I think Breaker's better than Goldberg. People might shoot me for that, but
Goldberg's a legend, but he also had a limited move
where I think Breaker could be creative.
And I think his dad and uncle, for those that are uninitiated with who those guys actually are, Michigan guys, went to University of Michigan, the Rex Steiners, the Steiner brothers. They were very innovative. I think people forget how innovative they were back in that day. They were known for being that's your era, Big G, with the Steiners. They were very innovative with the moves that they were able to initiate back in that day.
So now you're calling me old.
I mean, that was when I was young, Big G. So I'm not even going as old as I could go. That's when I was young.
Ouch.
That's not bad. I'm giving you that's 90s.
Yeah, and Rick Steiner was innovative until he became Big Papa Pump, and then he lost all of his flexibility and everything.
That was
like
that was Scott. But that was But maybe you'll remember, Joey. I feel like there's a move that Scott Steiner claims he basically invented.
The Frankensteiner.
Yeah, well, they had the Frankensteiner, but it wasn't the Hurricane Rana. But there was a move that was a very athletic move that I went, man, I saw early footage of him being able to do that. To your point, Big G, before he was a little bit more swole, as the kids say.
Was it the suplex into the pile driver?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to. We're gonna look that
finisher.
up.
That's his finisher on 2K25.
It was something more athletic than that. But I do want to talk about the video game. Joey was talking about that. We'll take a break and come back and talk some more wrestling here. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM.
Wide Moving Studios in Granville.
Country with a Twist. Jethro FM. 1530 AM. WYGR Wyoming Grand Rapids. 94.9 FM Grand Rapids. 99.5 FM Lowell. And Jethro South. 980 AM WAKV Otsego Plainwell. 98.9 FM Otsego. And 105.1 FM Kalamazoo. Available worldwide at jethro.fm.
I think we might have to have Coach Scott on a different show. We're still hoping to maybe hear from him, but we got a lot to talk about. We can talk some Pistons if we want. We can talk some basketball. We're going to talk more wrestling. Joey, what are you thinking? I'm a little worried about Big G's energy level. It seems a little low. He hasn't even broken into the second energy drink. I think now he doesn't want to break into it now that I'm watching. So it's like a watch pot never boils kind of thing.
Now you're just mocking me.
I want you to drink the second one. We're in the second hour. Let's go. Let's bring the energy. You haven't even fired me since the first 5 minutes.
I want to know who Big G's prediction for the men's rumble is.
What do you want to see here, Big G?
I think it's gonna be Breaker. I think it's going to be Bron Breaker. I think he's going to I don't know who the champion is. I don't know if he's going to challenge CM Punk, if CM Punk is still going to be the world champion, or if he's going to kind of break away from the vision and challenge Drew. I mean, he could do anything, but I think Breaker's a guy, and I think if anybody else wins it, I think I would be surprised, but that's just me.
What do you make of? I know CM Punk is one of kind of the more explosive figures in wrestling. He obviously, people chanted his name for years and years and years when he left WWE. Then he went over to AEW, didn't really leave there on great terms. I almost view him, this is going to be a weird comparison, but stick with me for a second. I almost view him because when he went back, I remember when he won the title at AEW, I was kind of thinking the same thing that I was thinking when Aaron Rodgers returned to the Jets. It was like, for some reason, this is going to blow up. Either Aaron Rodgers' interpersonal issues with his team's players, he's shown that over the course of his career, or his age and injury issues. And it's kind of the same way I look at Punk. He's a little bit volatile.
Yeah.
That's part of his character, and that's part of what his appeal is. He's supposed to be raw and all of that. But he between that and his age, I'm curious how they're going to book this run for him, because I know he wants to work like he's a young guy, but he is not a young
47.
guy anymore. So I'm curious how you see kind of his run going, and if it does interface with what happens in the Rumble, like Big G was alluding to. Do they pick Punk? Do they pick somebody else? How do we see this going with his run? Because I feel like he can't book too many dates for him.
Well, Elimination Chamber is in Chicago on February 28th. And I see him having a big time match there. I do think he remains champion until WrestleMania. I do think whoever wins the Rumble probably dethrones him at Mania. And then he probably takes a little bit of a break till SummerSlam, was my guess. But going on the road to WrestleMania, I see him working a lot.
With the 2-night format, it's almost like you have to plan a little bit differently with WrestleMania, because they want to have a premier match. Obviously, they're all premier matches at WrestleMania, even now that it's 10 hours total or whatever it is. Yeah. But they now basically plan to have kind of one championship at the end of the one night and one championship at the end of the other. So I could see Punk, you still, like you said, to your point, holding the title, because he would be a good one to potentially dethrone there. But so you're a Braun guy too. I don't know if I knew that about you, Big G. You like him because of the Steiner hierarchy there, the Steiner lineage?
Well, part of the Steiner lineage, the fact that they went to Michigan kind of knocks them down a little bit, because I don't like the University of Michigan, never have liked the University of Michigan, never will like the University of Michigan.
You're in Michigan and you're a Louisville fan. I don't know what to do about that.
Well, you're in Michigan and you're an Indiana fan.
I went to Indiana.
So?
Well, I mean, but I still have respect for Michigan. I grew up as a Michigan. I have a bunch of people that I know, friends and family, that went to Michigan State. How'd you become a Louisville fan? I don't know that.
Well, I've told this story before. I got family in Louisville. I went down there. I met Denny Crum, one of the nicest men I've ever met. And honestly, I was kind of ambivalent towards Michigan. I went to a Michigan State game. Most arrogant people in the world. Absolutely the most arrogant fans in the world.
He's gotten into his second energy drink, folks.
Yes,
if you didn't notice, Joey and I have seen in studio. He's into it now. Now we got him going. It is funny. This is not maybe the time, although we do have more time here, Big G. But I was talking about this with one of the Big Ten reps that came on, and we were talking about how I think it would be interesting to talk about, because it's funny, Big G, how each of the Big Ten schools kind of have their own identity. Michigan is, okay, polo shirts, khaki pants, a little bit of an air of, hey, well, I'm trying to be diplomatic here, Big G, because we got to take everybody, because then Michigan State's got a rep, Ohio State's got a rep, my alma mater, Indiana has a rep. It was a big party school when I was there. I didn't participate. I didn't add to that. I lowered the stats there. Oh. I didn't help it there. I was a non-drinker during, before, and after college, a never drinker. So, but they all have their different. It's funny how it's almost like it aggregates the type of person that comes there, because it appeals to a certain person. To your point there, Big G, I went to Michigan and I visited there, and I thought, no, this one's not for me. I don't have enough polo shirts and khaki pants in my collection.
Yeah.
And I went to East Grand Rapids, so I should have, but I didn't wear them there either. So, but shout out to East Grand Rapids. What's it?
Schwa, East Grand Rapids.
I know. That's why, but I didn't fit in there either.
Where they don't even let them put their dumpsters on the side of the road. They have to keep them inside their little gated areas.
What is this? I did not foresee a trash related rant from you. Do we need to get waste management on the line for a guest, or what do we need to do here?
Well, you're talking about the University of Michigan. I got to bring trash in there somehow.
We're gonna get some hate mail here. I think it's on this Thursday. We have a Michigan rep actually coming onto the Shane Graham show. We have Brett Gray, who's pretty connected to Michigan. He runs Sack the Stigma, a mental health organization that's based out of University of Michigan, and they have a partnership with them. So we'll get a report on them. I do think Whittingham is going to be good for that school. So that'll be interesting to talk about. But Big G's just angry about Michigan. Apparently, Michigan hurt him before, but now he's cooking here, Joey, because he's into the Mike and Ike's again, and he's got his energy drink going.
Yeah.
So we got him back online, but we got to get you back online here and talk about some of these other subject matters here as far as wrestling as a whole goes. We focused on the men's Royal Rumble. What do you have on the women's Royal Rumble here?
I actually nailed that down pretty easily. I think Liv Morgan's going to wind up winning it.
I saw you have that prediction there. I don't know if I don't think I have I may have the odds for that one.
I'd be curious to see what the odds are.
I think I have that. By the way, I scrolled back to my computer to go back to the last segment. The move I was trying to think of is Scott Steiner did a very early 450 splash.
Yeah, okay, yep.
That was the one. I knew it was an athletic move. I couldn't remember which one.
I was you're thinking that, or again the Steiner screwdriver, which was amazing. And to the point we were talking about earlier, they really were very innovative in their early days. They were kind of classic wrestlers because they were actually wrestlers, and then they became professionals. Have you ever, so staying on topic of the Steiners real quick, have you ever seen the dark match between the Steiners and the Hart brothers, Brett and Owen?
I don't think so. Not that I can remember. I can imagine it would be a good match. It was
released on the WWE Vault YouTube page a while back.
Okay.
And what an incredible match.
I like going back to those old matches and the old days, though the days that Big G was getting mad at me for attributing to him, but they were the days that I grew up in, the early WCW days, where they had the competitive nature with WWE, and I was even in a couple of those arenas as a young man, watching some of that stuff. So that's fun to go back to. You probably watch some of those old matches, Big G.
All the time I do.
That it's fun to go back to that. So now to answer your question, Joey, I've got the odds up for the Women's Royal Rumble. Your guess, Liv Morgan, is kind of the overwhelming favorite there. It's not bunched together. She's minus 115.
Okay.
And number 2 is Bianca Belair at plus 200.
I can see that.
And then Rhea Ripley plus 300. Those are kind of all batched together. And then the odds get a lot more kind of stretched. You got Tiffany Stratton next, then Charlotte Flair, Sky, but they get those are pretty long odds.
I think Bianca's a good choice because it's a return that she hasn't been on TV in feels like almost a year. It feels like it's been a while, and so I feel like if she wins the Royal Rumble, she's going after Jade. Big time.
That would make sense. That would be a big time feud.
Yes.
A lot of athleticism, a lot of power. That they could probably have a pretty good feud there. So I could see that. Yeah, they seem to agree with you with the odds. What do you think of Big G? You look like you got something on your mind.
I just hope if Bianca Belair comes back, she still has her long hair. It's still in a braid, and I hope she whips somebody and draws blood. I do.
You're a fan of that move. Can you grow out your hair to do that? Why don't you do that?
Because I'm 57 now, and I would probably be 104 by the time I grew it out that long.
It grows faster than that. I was going to give you like 3 years, like till like 60, and then for your 60th birthday, you're just swinging your hair around. What do we think?
I got nothing.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome.
Well, I'd like to see that, but that is, that braid is, it's like a rope.
Because you can see,
I've seen some of the some of the after effects, marks and stuff on the women there. So
she cut Sasha Banks open with it.
Did she? Yeah. I believe it, because I don't know what they do to it to make it. I mean, it's real hair, but I don't know what's inside it too. But to kind of make it like that. But yeah, the odds seem to agree with you on the women's match. But we'll come back and talk some more wrestling and maybe work some other sports in here because we got a decent amount of time left in the show. But it's good. We got Joey and Big G, and he's got a good energy here headed into the final 40 or so minutes of the show. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. We're going to talk more wrestling with Big G and Joey, but we've gotten a couple good segments in. We got to talk some Pistons here because since Coach Scott won't be on to cover them, we got to get some Pistons in here because they continue to play well. This is a theme that we've covered a lot on the show, Joey, that I talked about this in the Red Wings segment. They are not talked about like a team that is number one in the East. If you just heard the talk, you would think, okay, maybe they're like the 7 seed or something like that. But they've been pretty dominant at the top of the East, and it's just funny to me that the storyline is, oh well, okay, they've got to trade, they've got to do this. We were talking about this a little bit in the break. Sounds like you're a fan of kind of keeping the core together, which is usually one of the tenets that I kind of go by on the show. If you got a good core, good young core, why break it up? Why mess with the chemistry? If you're building, let that be. If it might be a longer build, but it's a more sustainable build.
Yeah, this team starting to remind me of the 03-04 Pistons. It's like nobody was really talking about them as a number 1 or number 2 seed at the time. Obviously, when they made the Rasheed trade, that changed the whole landscape of the team. But, I mean, going into that year, a lot of people thought the Nets were the front runner to win the East, and we kind of blew right by Indiana, blew right by the Nets, basically blew by the Lakers in the finals. In
what is probably still regarded as the biggest upset in finals history. I know they've been trying to work in some of the more, a couple more recent ones they've been trying to work in, but that's a hard one. I think Pistons fans weren't that surprised, but as far as the overall market, getting that team with Shaq and Karl Malone, and aging Karl Malone, but Kobe,
the Monstars versus the Toon Squad.
Exactly. They had Space Jam in the house for that one. Yeah, I agree. And I think you bring up a good point about comparing them to the Going to Work group, because they had I remember watching one of the recent games. I think it was one of the games that they did with Robbie Hummel and Scalabrine as the analysts, and they were talking about how the Pistons have to do something because their style of play will not work as well in the playoffs. I actually disagree with that. I think it's the opposite, because the things that they do well, to your point, they're tough. They've got very good defense. They were basically saying, well, teams aren't going to turn the ball over as much in the playoffs. I don't think that's up to them. I think it's up to the defense they play against. And so I think the things that don't always travel well in the playoffs are things like 3-point shooting. You can go cold if you're already kind of a subpar 3-point shooting team and winning to this clip. If you can even just improve from here, then you're maybe finals bound at that point. So I thought that was a strange point. I like Hummel's analysis, but that one, I get the point he's trying to make, that hey, the play is better overall. You're going to have the cream rise to the top kind of thing, and so you're going to have people on their games, but that still doesn't account for the defense. There's variability in there.
And to me, the most important thing isn't play. The most important thing, in my opinion, is staying healthy. Because if you look at last year, we weren't fully healthy going in against the Knicks, and then fast forward all these months later. You saw what they did to the Knicks a couple of weeks ago
when they weren't healthy then. Because to your point, and I know we talked about this guy in the break, but one of the better players on the team that you're hoping to see named to the reserve squad of the All-Star game, Jalen Duren, he wasn't playing in that game. And to your point last year, they didn't have Stewart, who is one of the most important players on this team.
I agree.
Not enough people say that. Not enough people recognize that. They just want to look at him as kind of an enforcer type guy. But I think he's a lot more than that. As far as defensive efficiency, he is one of the tops in the league. If he was getting more playing time, he would be the favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. He just literally is not meeting the playing time metrics, which is incredible in itself because that means he's doing this amount of productivity that's still competitive for the Defensive Player of the Year award with less time, with like basically 2/3 of the time, 3/4 of the time that a normal person of his talent and skill would get. But that speaks to the depth and hopefully the health of the team headed into the playoffs, because that's what happens to a lot of these teams. We saw it in the old Flip Saunders days of the Pistons, to go back to kind of some of the old days. That was after the going to work group, but that was a lot of players from the going to work group, but he ran those guys into the ground. They won a lot of games in the regular season, and then they had tired legs in the playoffs. These guys are not going to have tired legs in the playoffs. They're young and they're deep, and they've got a lot of healthy players. You can't always depend on health, but you've got guys that are trending towards being very healthy in the playoffs. You just got to probably reduce Cade's minutes. He's a young guy, and I get that they have him out there playing, but thankfully you've got a lot of backup guards that can kind of take that mantle now when he's gone, because this is I think this is probably the deepest team in the league. It's one of them up there with the Thunder and a couple others. The Spurs are fairly deep this year. They have a lot of young guys, but this is a very deep team.
I was actually, because me and my brother talk basketball all the time. It's one of the best things we converse about. And I told him, I was like, I could see a rematch of the 05 finals between the Spurs and the Pistons within the next year or two.
They're definitely two of the teams. This is always an interesting thing to me, because I have a good friend of mine that always wants to talk about the teams that aren't doing very well or the worst teams in the league. And oftentimes the quote unquote worst teams in the league are the ones that have fully leaned into a rebuild. And the Pistons and the Spurs were in that category. There's a reason they've both been drafted high. You draft high in the NBA because you have the worst record. And obviously there's a lottery involved, but you still have a subpar record. But it's because they've been leaning into this. That's why I like talking about the young core. I like staying out of that middle. It's hard to get. I think it's harder to get out of that middle ground and get to the elite than it is to get from the bottom to the top. We're seeing this. OKC was at the bottom, stacking up all those picks, and now they're at the top. They skipped the middle. They were never really in the middle. The Pistons are doing the same thing. They literally had the biggest gap between wins and losses from year to year in basically NBA history. So that now they're kind of trending towards the top, just like the Spurs are. Yes, it helps when you get a generational player like Wemby, but they've drafted well and done well otherwise with their other picks, and added and have basically said, hey, we want to just add young guys. We'll layer in some veterans, but we want to focus on our young core, and that's how you go from worst to first, basically proverbially, but maybe for real in a lot of these cases.
I have to make the joke that when it comes to NBA 2K, you can't touch Wemby.
Oh,
you just can't.
I mean,
you can't.
He's like a player that has been created in NBA 2K. I mean, like he's a real person, but there's a player that they're somehow, with all the data that we have today and all of the information, obviously we're about to do the combine on the football side of things where they measure all these guys and all of that. I don't think we truly know what Wemby's actual height is at this point, because you see him standing next to guys that are true 7-footers, and he's supposed to only be an inch or two taller than them, and it's like he kind of has a little bit of a hunch to him. He doesn't really stand straight up, and he's still taller than these guys that he's, as far as the listed height for him, he's only supposed to be like an inch or two taller than. It's like, no, he's more than 2 inches taller than that guy. And I think part of that at the beginning was because there's correlation. I don't think it's necessarily causation, but correlation between height and injury in the NBA. The taller guys are more prone to be injured. There's various reasons for that. Obviously, body types are not really supposed to get that big once you get up in the 7'4", 7'7" range. But yeah, him with all of those other guys, I mean, his defensive metrics, speaking of, that would be the only reason that Stewart would be able to win, is if Wemby didn't qualify because of the injuries that he's had this year. Because, as far as defensive player of the year, he's by far the best defensive player in the league. Yeah. But Isaiah Stewart might be number 2 to him, which is kind of crazy to think about, because he doesn't have the natural gifts that Wembanyama has, but he's able to use his toughness and a lot of his other skills to really he's really become one of the most important players. So having him as hopefully a key part of this playoff run that they're going to embark on. I did want to get your take on the trade deadline, because we're talking about that comes up every week on the show here. We talk to the different pundits. I think everybody agrees that they should make a move, but not necessarily a big move. And I'm kind of in that. It sounds like you are too, Joey. I'm kind of in that camp. I think there just has to be some consolidation of the pieces almost, but I don't want to mess with this team either, because I think the depth and the ability for everybody, it's almost like some of these college teams where they're able to have different guys have good nights. It's not always this. Yeah, it's not always the same guys, and so you don't have to lean on all these guys. Yeah. You have Danis Jenkins, who's had a very good year, supposed to be a two-way player. Yeah, we've only covered him because we talked to Chad Bush, who's the play-by-play guy of the Motor City Cruise, so he's seen him play, and I've been following him on that team. But yeah, all these guys are great stories, but I'm a fan of them basically standing pat and maybe just consolidating some pieces, because from a roster management standpoint, Danis needs a roster spot at some point in time around the trade deadline. Yeah. So you maybe clear up a roster spot or two to get him in there and consolidate some pieces. But other than that, I don't think you do much.
But that's also another question. Who do you consolidate?
That's
a tough question.
It's a tough question. I am starting to get to center around a couple players. So I hate to say this one, Joey, because his father actually is a friend of mine and a friend of the show. Yeah. He's a former football player himself. I interviewed him on the Shane Graham show last week. His dad is a legendary football player that in the market, James Hunter. I'm talking about Javen Hunter, and his son is Jaden Ivey. So now I know this one's a dicey one. I think Jaden can be a very important part of this team's future. Yeah. Here's my problem with him, though, is he's clearly not lining up real well with the current iteration of the team. There's a lot of reasons for that. The injuries, I talked about this in the interview with his dad, basically saying he had to get on a moving train, and he's trying to catch up with this train that's been moving. The problem for me is not that. I think he's going to be fine. I think if you give him the whole season, I think he's going to settle in. I think he's going to get better as the season goes on. Yep. All of those kinds of things. I'm worried about what that looks like as we approach the playoffs, and then the ability to re-sign him after the season. That's the main question that I have. If you're not confident that you're going to or can re-sign him at a somewhat reasonable level, because there's going to be teams maybe throwing starting point guard money at him, and you're having him as a secondary scorer, then you have to say, okay, I'm going to prioritize. I've got to re-sign a bunch of guys. I've got to re-sign Duran, who's having an all-star level season. Yep. I've got to re-sign Thompson. I've got to get Ron Holland maybe in the mix after that. Yep. They've got a lot of guys from their young core, and you always felt like somebody had to be squeezed out, and so maybe that is getting ahead on Ivy and saying, hey, let's package Ivy with a contract that makes sense to get a decent player like a Karis LeVert.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And this guy's valuable to the team, or a Tobias Harris, because his contract is good for these types of deals. Yeah. I saw your reaction in studio, and I'm like that too. I would love for it. I think you could do something where you could get Ivy and LeVert and trade for a guy that maybe trends to starting above Harris, or you add into that big man rotation. That would be my ideal, because I think Harris also probably doesn't factor into the long term. That's why I'm including him in this group. He's a great leader for the current team. I have no problems with what he's done. I think he's been very valuable for the team with his contract, with his leadership. I'd like a little bit better three-point shooting, and he's got kind of the old man game. He's backing everybody down. It works, but I'd love that on the second unit, and then maybe you goose up the first unit.
We need Beasley back.
That's the thing. You need more shooting.
We need. I don't know what his legal situation still is. I just, to me, like if they could get Beasley back, like Harris and LeVert are gone.
I've mentioned that several times on the show. I think the ideal thing is, I don't know if this is possible because, again, the legal situation, I think, unfortunately, the second legal situation that happened with the whole Chauncey Billups, it's two different issues, but the Chauncey Billups thing, kind of being a front man potentially for a gambling organization and a gambling ring, and then the Terry Rozier thing and a couple other players where they were potentially involved in some betting on their own games. Those two things happening after the Beasley thing, I think, actually slowed that down. I think if we hadn't had any of that, I think Beasley would have been cleared because it was trending towards that, and they have not found. I tried to remind people of that on the show. They hadn't found anything. Let's not accuse innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly.
Let's not accuse them of anything. So I think the ideal is if you could package, say, like Harris, LeVert, and Ivy, and get one player. A Trey Murphy level player, somebody that Trajan Langdon has experience with, that would be a good fit. You put him in Harris's role, and then the other two players that you put in those two roles, because Danis is not officially on this roster.
No.
So Danis is one of them, and then I'm right there with you, Joey. I think Malik Beasley's the other. And then now you've solved all your problems in one move, basically. You got a young piece for the future, and you've got some more shooting.
The one guy I wish we would have re-signed from a veteran standpoint during this past offseason was Tim Hardaway Jr. I felt like the Pistons used his skills better than any other NBA team has.
Especially with what he signed for when he left, because that's what I thought was going to kind of price him out. It's like when Schroeder left, I liked what he did for the Pistons last year, but I knew they weren't going to be able to pay him. The guards were already stacked up. They're now even more stacked up than we thought they'd be. So, but Hardaway, to your point, did something that the other folks don't do here on the current team. You basically had Duncan Robinson replacing Malik Beasley, but then nobody really to replace Hardaway. So if you bring Beasley back, then Robinson replaces Hardaway. Now you're in a totally different situation. To our point with the trade scenario. But good talk about the Pistons there. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of reason to be hopeful about the Pistons. Go ahead, Joe.
Just reading the rosters. I do kind of find it interesting that there's nobody from the Pistons or the G League, Motor City Cruise, that is representing in the Rising Stars game this year.
That is interesting. I don't know if that's interesting how they pick that, because you have the Rising Stars where they obviously have plenty of rising stars, quote unquote, in the league. Cade Cunningham's still a rising star, even though he's a superstar. He's a young guy. Obviously, Ausar Thompson is a rising star. Because all these guys are super young, but they're almost too good for the rising.
But as rookie, sophomore, and G League guys.
And
I was really shocked not to see Jenkins picked for that team.
I don't think people know what to do with him to a degree, because it's like he's been in the G League for a while, and I heard this was an interesting comparison. When he came on, they basically said, at one point they compared him to Jeremy Lin. And I was like, that's a really interesting comparison, because they were talking about, it wasn't a very accurate comparison in my estimation. There was a lot of things that were going into that Jeremy Lin thing, the international piece, the Knicks piece of it, but they were basically saying nobody had taken the league by storm from such an unknown place. And I think that's part of it, where he featured very well, and whenever he plays very well. He just filled in for Cade the other night.
Yeah.
He had another good game, but you don't necessarily see him every night. I think if he was a starting guard, I think we would probably maybe see him get more accolades.
Could be a sixth man.
Oh, definitely. He's got the skill to do all that.
Yeah.
It's just on this current team.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not going to start above some of these
Speaking
guys.
of G League, no Mac McClung this year in the All-Star weekend.
I knew you would work in a Mac McClung reference, but I did see that you posted that he's not going to be taking part in the slam dunk contest. So
and he's not representing the G League in the Rising Stars game either.
Is that because he has been vacillating between the NBA and
No,
that's just he just decided not to.
I think, and this is my perspective on it, I think he feels like, okay, well, if a team's not going to give me a real shot, because let's face it, the Pacers only played him 3 games.
Which on that team, I mean,
he should still be playing there.
Well, I mean, it'd be nice to see what they had in him. That's the one benefit you have. The Pistons did this when they were in their losing position. The Pacers are in that position, but they're in a good position. We talk about worst to first. They're in good position to have a swing where you can basically, you got Halliburton coming back next year. You got a lot of good pieces that are all hurt. Why don't you see who you have in your system? See what a Mac McClung can do. Some of these other younger guys, and then let them kind of breathe at the NBA level and give them an audition, because they're not making the playoffs this year. They know that already. But it has confused me why people haven't. That happened to Derek Jones Jr. I think that's an interesting comparison,
Another great
because
player, I think.
and he became a good 3-and-D guy and a starting level player, but nobody gave him a shot when he was the dunker.
Yeah.
And then he had to become this 3-and-D guy. That's not Mac McClung's game, but I think he's got a game that's transferable
I got
to
to
the
see
NBA.
him in person about a month or two ago.
Nice. Yeah, good player. Yeah, they got the gold here, Cruz in on the east side, and we'll talk to Chad Bush at some point again, because they're doing well still here. But yeah, good basketball segment. We'll take a break, and then we'll probably do one more wrestling segment and close up the show. I'm seeing no drinks by Big G, so we gotta check in with him. I gotta see what's going on with him. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Coming back here in studio with Big G and Joey. So Joey was on his phone here in the break. He said he might have some breaking news. So I don't know what this is.
I'm following Twitter right now, trying to see what's happened on Raw so far. And I don't know if it's been made official tonight, but it sounds like the main event might be AJ Styles versus CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Interesting for the actual
Or the World Heavyweight Championship.
but that's on we're
Raw.
talking on Raw.
Routine out tonight.
Okay, wow. Now I'm glad you brought him up, because I've been a long fan of Styles.
Yep.
I think Cena said in his retirement tour that Styles is kind of his GOAT to a degree, or best worker. I forget what phrasing he used, but I remember seeing him in the Ring of Honor days. Might have even been a show that you were at, Joey, but I remember seeing a show in Kalamazoo in the Wing Stadium there, where they had a lot of guys that are in WWE now that all had Ring of Honor roots here.
Yeah.
And Styles has always been a great worker. Now he's kind of starting. It seems like they got the Cena retirement tour out of the way, and now we're headed right into Styles retirement tour.
Sounds like it's going to be Saturday.
That's so. So you're thinking that he's going to be done on Saturday? You think he's going to lose to Gunther?
Everyone keeps saying Saturday's it.
Are you surprised it wouldn't be longer than that?
That I am shocked by.
Because to me, correct me if I'm wrong, you watch all this stuff, but when I first saw that, I thought, because we haven't talked about, we messaged about it a little bit after it happened, but we haven't talked about on the show that the Cena retirement match. And I think a lot of people that are unfamiliar with wrestling, or maybe truly don't know how things are booked, were questioning that. But the finish and the booking made a lot of sense to me.
Did.
Because it matched up with who Cena was. You knew Cena. I know a lot of people wanted him to win. That's not how guys like him go out. Typically, you, as the phrase goes, you go out on your back. You give the charge, the supercharge to somebody else.
Yeah.
And if you're a big baby face like Cena was, it's got to be to a heel. So then everybody's going to be unhappy, obviously.
I'm telling you, this whole thing added a whole new layer to Gunther. Like,
And no one is happier about that than John Cena.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's what people don't understand. But that's why. So I'm going back to that because I'm wondering if the storyline here is because you build up a heel so that a face can eventually unseat him and have the big moment.
Yeah.
So do you have Styles do that and beat Gunther?
No.
And then you have Gunther retire Styles a little bit later?
No.
No? What?
Because, my wife is so good when it comes to wrestling psychology. So smart. She's like, you can't have Gunther lose that quick after beating Cena.
I guess it would just surprise me if I'm mainly doing it that way because one, I think it would be an interesting storyline. You're still getting a good kind of baby face bump from Styles winning, and it just would surprise me. I know Styles isn't the type of guy that wants to take a long retirement tour. He's not about himself.
No.
Everybody, that's his reputation is very well known, but it just seems awfully short.
I know. I could see Styles winning by DQ. That's the only way I see it happening.
Interesting. Okay.
From a booking standpoint, I don't see Gunther taking another pinfall loss until 2027.
Which would be, like you said, you want to build him up as a heel. You want to get him heat. He's getting nuclear heat, which is what you want, and then you want to build up the proper person. This is always interesting to me because I feel like this happened with Roman Reigns. It was like they were building Roman Reigns up, and then he got to such a nuclear level, and then it was like nobody could beat him. It was like, well, now who do we book to beat him? Nobody's, they had some injury issues, they had some other things happen, but it's like, now who do we book?
Yeah.
So you don't want to go too far because I feel like they took that almost too far in that journey, but you want to have a long, sustained build of whoever that baby face is. I don't know that we know at this point in time.
I think I could see if he gets over as I'm not sure if he's coming in as a heel or babyface yet, but I could see a big guy like Obafemi being the one to take down Gunther at some point.
Which I know they were kind of talking about him because of that Cena retirement show, because he was on the show earlier,
with Cody.
Had a very good match with Cody Rhodes, and I think some people were complaining a little bit about how that match was booked as far as the finish
was
goes.
fine.
Yeah, because it was a DQ, right?
Yeah,
Drew McIntyre interrupted that match.
Yeah.
I watched that one, but yeah, you got to build up a young guy.
Yep.
I mean, hopefully a young guy. It doesn't always have to be a young guy. AJ Styles obviously isn't a young guy, so you're not building up a young guy when you do that. But that's why I'm wondering if that rubber band effect would be effective, because you say, okay, he gets that rub, but then Gunther still gets the rub of putting him out, in however many months. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Styles retire abruptly either, because he's not the type that wants to go on a big, long retirement tour.
I thought, if anything, he'd go into at least WrestleMania and go out like Flair did. But I mean, it's to me, I think AJ does deserve one more WrestleMania match, because I mean, no disrespect to Logan Paul, but I mean, is that how we want to remember AJ's last WrestleMania match, being against Logan Paul?
And you never know what's going on with these guys' bodies too. He's been working for a long time, so maybe this is his timeline that he says, "Hey, I can't make it to WrestleMania." Who knows? Big G, what do you got going on over there? You've had your second energy drink, but you've been very quiet. I think this is the crash that I was worried about. I think we're crashing. Are we crashing?
No, not at all. You guys are the stars of the show, and I'm just.
Well, what do you think of this conversation? What do you think about the whole Styles thing? Do you think he's gonna lose to Gunther and be done after Royal Rumble here?
I think so. Like you guys said, I don't think that AJ Styles is a, let's watch me go into the sunset. And Joey brought up Ric Flair at WrestleMania. When Ric Flair came back to Impact Wrestling or TNA and started wrestling again because, well, he needed money. I lost so much respect for him because if he would have even if he would have had to ask Vince, because we know Vince has bailed him out more than once.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he would have done it again. And in fact, I know that Vince McMahon was pissed when he saw Ric Flair on TNA. He had to be. Ric Flair lost so much credibility to me when he came back, and then even his last match when he was 70 some odd years old. He's gonna. Why?
Yeah,
I was worried about his health in that match. I mean, he's not even supposed to be taking bumps, and then he's in that
and the
match.
other one,
I'm sure he was protected.
The other one that bothered me is when Shawn came out of retirement to tag with Triple H, and they did DX versus Brothers Destruction, and it ended up being one of the worst matches in pro wrestling history.
And I think that's why somebody like Cena will leave his storyline exactly where it is.
Yeah, he's done. It's
yeah,
done.
like, you know, because I get the temptation. We talk about that on the sports side of things, where guys want to come out of retirement and all of that stuff, and I'm sure they have that there. But
Cena's not hurting for money.
No,
not at all.
He's going to make more money, arguably, on the path that he's on right now, because he's got movies. I know they wanted to have him on. I think it was the Today Show. I forget which one.
Yep.
You know, he's got a very bright career ahead of him. But okay, I want to get your final takes here, Joey. We got to take one more break before we finish up. But before that break, I want to get your final takes on what you foresee happening here in Royal Rumble, what you're looking forward to the most.
Well, there's not been a lot of entrants announced for the men's Rumble, so I'm really curious to see who they put in it. I'm still waiting, and maybe it's this year that'll happen. There was 3 times in the last year Jacob Fatu and Braun Breaker came face to face, never laid a finger on each other. So I'm hoping this is the year, this is the event that we finally get some physicality between the two of them.
That would be good.
That's my dream matchup.
Okay.
That is, to me, like a year or two from now, I want that to be a WrestleMania main event.
And both of them are rising stars, obviously. I mean, I don't know if it's kind of like the rising star conversation with the Pistons. I don't know if you can call Braun rising because he's kind of already
He's
there.
already getting there.
But those guys are both guys that are getting a push. What about you, Big G? You got something you're looking forward to this weekend here?
Truly, I'm just looking for the whole event. I don't really follow individual wrestlers. I kind of follow the company as a whole. So I'm just looking forward to see what surprises happen. You know, whether they swerve us with a finish for either the men's or women's Royal Rumble. Just the whole thing. And I know that sounds kind of a cop out, but yeah, that's what I am.
Well, that's what the event is, though. I mean, it is about that main match. It's not necessarily about a single wrestling pair or single wrestler. It's about that whole match. As I alluded to before, I'm looking forward to hopefully an R-Truth bit this year. That's original, like some of the other ones that we're talking about, the ladder and the tag. But we'll take a quick break here, and then we'll close up the show. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Coming back here with Big G and Joey, want to thank them for joining me on this ride. We were talking about it in the break, but we unfortunately missed Coach Scott. We'll get him back on, but had a good talk with Joey in studio. So thanks for coming in, Joey. And we'll look forward to having you back in for wrestling takes and otherwise. Be sure to tell people where they can follow you here. I want to make sure to get that.
So Hollywood's World of Sports on Facebook, Twitter. I actually just opened up a new TikTok account. I'm stepping away from doing like the audio podcast that I was doing. I tried doing it solo again, but this wasn't working. So I'm kind of doing the TikTok thing now where I'm doing like 60-second sports takes every day. My TikTok username is HollywoodJoe85. So find me on there and you'll probably see me raging some shenanigans.
Be sure to follow him. He'll have takes, I'm sure, on the Royal Rumble and all that kind of stuff, and we'll be having him back on the show. Big G, thanks for keeping us on track here. I'm sorry you had to have so many energy drinks to be able to keep up with us here today.
Oh no, not at all. I was fine though, fine the whole day or the whole couple hours, and I just kicked back and, like I said, listen to the stars of the show, be the stars of the show.
Well, you're a star too, Big G, and I'm hoping you're going to have some peanut brittle after the show.
I will.
Perfect. But yeah, thanks to all of our guests, Joey. And then, we'll have Coach Scott back on. He's got an interesting story. He's got a book coming out in July, so we'll hopefully talk to him before then or around then. He'll have a lot of interesting stuff for us. Michael Whitaker was great from the Hockey News, and want to thank our sponsors, Collectible Insurance Services, Aircall Aesthetic and General Dentistry, Calder Financial, Grand Management Group, Rydan Investments, Encore Business Group, Jim Haglund of JH Realty, Williams Chiropractic, iCore, and we have a new sponsor. We don't have the commercial cut yet. They're working on that, but the West Michigan Sports Commission, as heard last week here, Steve interviewed the president for us, so be sure to pay attention to their luncheon. They got their luncheon coming up here in February, so get a ticket to that. I'll be there. It'll be a good speaker, James Dixon, so be sure to tune into that. Be sure to tune into the rest of the Jethro lineup. You got the aforementioned Sports Professor and the Sports Project on Wednesday, 7 to 9, and Saturday, 10 to 12. Shane Graham will be back on his show live in studio. You won't have to listen to me as much. That's relief for everybody out there. He'll be on the show from 7 to 9 on Thursday. We got a good lineup there. Eric Kramer will be back on. That'll be a good interview and have a good lineup in general. And then be sure to tune into the rest of the Jethro lineup. Dave and Rowdy during the day, and then Jeff Isaac at the Request Show, 7 to 9 on Saturday. Be sure to catch MLB on the Polka Pops, the whole thing. You got to catch the whole Jethro lineup. So thanks for tuning in. Until next week, stay informed and stay vigilant.